Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be doing a playthrough of Panzer North Africa from GMT Games, designed by James Day and Fernando Solo Ramos. This is Scenario 57, Operation Brevity, Duel at City Aziz, which is in Libya, mid-May 1941. So I did an intro, it was technically a reveal video where I revealed that this would be the next game. And I also described what happens or what the setup is for this scenario. So I will not repeat myself here. If you would like to see that information, it is easily available. Just I'll link it here in a card. And you can also, of course, find it on my channel in the playlist for Tanktoberfest or GMT Games. And so let's just get right down to it here. So the first thing we are going to do is we are supposed to roll a d10 for both sides. And my die rolls will show up here in the upper corner. I've kind of cropped this out a little bit so that we don't have much of the screen taken up by controls or anything. You're going to be able to focus on the map and what's going on the map. I will show other displays, of course, with charts and data cards and things like that. But as I was saying, both sides will roll a d10. The force rolling the higher result will select path 29A5 or 33GG5. So the paths they are referring to are here. That is the GG path, I believe. It's hard to tell from here, but one is here and one is, I think, here. So yeah, this is A5 over here. That's A5 and GG is over here. So that is what it is, which makes sense because the columns or the columns of hexes start at A and they end at GG. So basically our western edge and our eastern edge. But the battlefield can be however you wish it, orientation-wise, essentially. So in this case, we're going to roll. I will roll a d10 for the British first. We'll use the blue die for them, although you can't see it. It does say blue d10 4. Now the red one we'll use for the Germans. They get a 2. So the British get to choose. Now the main issue with this is that it determines which hex side you have to get to exit the map. So if you start at 29A5, which of course is down here, you'll need to go to GG5 on map 33, which is up here, I think. Oh no, it's this one. It is this one. So basically you're going to the opposite one. In the case of entering here, you're going to make transition from this side of the map to over here. Vice versa, if you start at this one, you're going to try to exit the map down here at the southern edge in F10 on map 29. Okay, so our advanced game sequence of play. So let me pop this up here. Okay, so here you can see our sequence of play. Spotting phase is first. We have our rule notations here. The ones in black are the basic rules, and ones in red are advanced rules. We will be using the advanced game sequence of play. So the spotting phase for us really has no impact because neither side has entered the map. The British did win the die roll, and we'll just have them enter from the GG column and head towards that hex on map 29 F10. So then we will go to the command phase. Now, before we do that, the rules say that you move onto the map board in turn 1 with 1 company or squadron on the selected path hex at the path movement rate. So the path movement rate is just how much it costs to move down the path. Pretty self-explanatory. In terms of which unit we want to use, we would, for the British, they of course have some units to choose from. This is elements of the 7th Armored Brigade. So we have a cruiser squadron, a light cruiser squadron, and an armored car squadron. So if I bring up the British forces here, you can see off-board step window. So here we have our cruiser squadron rather, And our light cruiser squadron is here. And then this is our armored car squadron. So these are recon forces. And then we have some light tanks and some cruiser tanks, I guess. Although these are Stuarts, which the British called them Mark A13 Mark 12s, but they are basically Stuarts. So I think what we'll do is we'll just bring this this one on first. So we'll take the cruiser squadron and bring them on map here. Here we have our command tank. So this is our tank here. It is the A13 Mark II cruiser, Mark IV. You can see here, this is the silhouette, so to speak, with its paint scheme. It's got all kinds of symbology on here, right? Up here you see M, that's the movement factor. 5 over terrain, that's what the T is for. 7 for path, 11 for road. So we will be coming in on a path, so we will be able to move 7 movement points, or 7 hexes in this case, as long as we stay on the path. And that's really all we need to worry about at the moment. Some of this other stuff will come in. Rate of fire cue, that indicates it's quick fire, and so on and so forth. We'll get into what all this is. The 2-pounder, of course, is the gun. So we will explain what all that means a little bit later on. But for now, we're going to move him onto the map. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, whoops, 5, 6, 7. All right. And we'll take this group here. Actually, I did that wrong. I apologize. They're all going to get a movement command. So you do have command chits that you can put on here to indicate that they had movements. Movement orders, that's all they can do on this turn because we're not even on map yet. So we're going to go as I just did. We're going to move them on. Now the Germans will also have move commands. But for now, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can have 6 tanks, I believe, in one hex. There are 3 here. So, and there's 1 here. So let's move these guys together. I could use a leader. I have not put a leader out. I may want to do that. Let me do that. Okay, so I brought some leaders on. So here you have Captain Stevens, and then over here we'll have our other 2 company commanders, Lieutenant Matherson and Captain Burton. Now, leaders are an optional rule, and basically what their stats here mean. So you see A1, that is his AP hit modifier. G10 is his general purpose fire modifier. Then you have S for suppression recovery, M for morale, P for spotting, and R for indirect fire response modifier. So his stats are actually pretty good, but you can see that basically Burton has pretty much the same stats, and Lieutenant Matherson is slightly less effective in terms of his suppression and morale ratings. So these guys will go with the command vehicles from the other 2 companies. Now, typically the commander here would go on the bottom. Actually, I forgot to double click that. So you put your command tank, put this on top of him, and then I'm going to move these guys here and put this one on top because that's how I want to do it. So now those guys are all together. There are 5 tanks in that hex plus the commander. If you hover over the hex here in Vassal, you can actually see what's there. These all go together. These 2 will come in with the other companies that are currently on the card. So we'll bring these guys on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'll go there. And then these guys are reconnaissance. Now, I probably should have moved them on first. They have longer movement, as you can see. We have 15 and 20. Now, the 8W indicates these are wheeled units. And the 5T, I said terrain, it's actually tracked, but that's their over terrain, off-road, basically, movement ability. So if we take this guy and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh no, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're going to put him there, and that means this guy can get there as well. So we'll put him here as well, and we'll put him here behind them. Now they've all moved, and you can put spot moved markers on them to indicate that they are spotted because they moved. However, in this first turn, we're only moving units onto the map. So now we'll switch to the German side. Here is their setup card. They will bring in, excuse me, they're going to bring in the 101 here. So they'll also get 3 leaders, and I'll pull those out here in a moment. But we're going to take these. Well, let's do them one at a time. We'll take these guys and drop them here, and them here, and them here. That can go away. Now I'm going to draw some leaders for them, and I'll place the 3 leaders out. Of course, one will go with the command tank, which is this guy right here. Okay, so one thing you can do with Vassal that you can't do with the board game is you can use both sides of the same counter. So typically you'd be kind of limited by rank to taking, because the counters for the game for the leaders come with 2, 1 on each side, and they're sorted by rank. So we have Hauptmanns here, which are of course German captains, and the two of them are Klein and Wissmann. So that's these 2 guys here. Now the color on here indicates what branch they are, and technically Wissmann should be artillery, so maybe I will actually pull him out, and we'll just remove him for now. So Klein will be the Hauptmann. He's going to be in 101. I'll give Schultz, who is a Leutnant, which is of course like a first lieutenant basically, or first. Oh no, I'm sorry. He's an Oberleutnant, and I'll pull out a Leutnant, which is a second lieutenant, to command the other one. So Schultz will go, because it's a little bit hard to tell, but this pinkish color indicates the branch that they're in, and that would be armor or panzers. So these are panzer commanders, and Wissmann was an artillery commander. That's why I put him back. So Schultz will get this company, and then I'll pull out another guy to command our armored car company. And actually for armored cars, golden yellow. So I'll see if we have a Leutnant with that particular color scheme. I don't think Schultz has that. Let's flip them over. That's like white, which would be infantry, of course. Okay, so we'll flip that back. All right, so having said all that, let's put out our command tank first here. We're just going to move him right there for now. And actually, no, up here, we'll take Klein, drop him there. He'll go with that guy. Then we're going to bring this other tank out, and I'm just going to stick this guy on top. Now that would be 1, 2, 3. Let's move down a little bit. 4, 5, 6. They have a path movement rating of 6, so that's 4, 5, 6. So they're going to go here. I should also rotate them. So the front of the tank is this side. So if we do a pivot, I can also use Control X. So now they're facing forward in the direction they're moving, which is what you're supposed to do. So we will do that. Now again, there are 2 tanks here. The stacking limit is 6. So we have 4 more here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them here. And then we'll pivot them twice, like so. And then these guys will just bring up the rear. And I'll put them here. And now we are all lined up. And that actually is all we can do here in turn 1. So if we look at our sequence of play, right? I didn't do initiative. I just let the British have it. Technically, you're supposed to roll. In this turn, it does not really matter because movement comes after combat. And we weren't on the map, So we had to do movement, and once we do movement, combat phase is already passed, so we can't do combat here. So now you would get the adjustment phase where you can do things like adjust your turret or cover or things like that. We don't really need to do any of that. I didn't put any markers, so we don't have to remove any markers or anything like that. And then we just go to the end turn. Now you can see, again, I mentioned this earlier, red means advanced game rules, blue means optional rules. Right now we're using leaders, which is an optional rule. I'm undecided yet whether I'll use any other optional rules. The nice thing about this game is you do have the ability to kind of mix and match your rules and do things in your own way, to put as much, layer as much in as you would like to have. So here's our turn marker. And we're going to go to turn 2 now. So again, the first thing we're going to do is, and I'll just hide this again for the moment because we need to determine our view here, or spotting rather. Now you can see this is pretty flat, right? This is pretty flat. We do have some rough here in some of these areas, but generally speaking, this is pretty much a flat map. It is the desert. It's flat map. We do, according to our rules here for our scenario, have a special rule for limited visibility. So we have to do turn-based spotting modifiers. And the spotting modifier on turns 1 through 3 is a -2. So when you roll a spotting check, you have to do through turns 1 to 3, you have to take a -2 on your die roll. Now, in turns 4 to 6, you would do a -1. Okay, so here we have our spotting chart. Now we're talking about vehicles here in terms of the tanks. So we have a V for that, and at level 0, spotting range is 20. Because nobody's on a hill or anything or in a gully. This is completely flat. You only worry about terrain as it is in the hex that you're looking at. All of the units that will be spotting each other right now are on paths in clear terrain, so we don't have to worry about that. Because as you can see, clear, 4th column is cover, and that is none for that. And when you look at a path, here, road path, it says other, so you look at the other terrain in the hex, which is pretty standard, which is clear, and again, none. So that's it. We'll talk about this other stuff. This is the movement cost. So we only have wheeled and tracked rather vehicles in here. H is half track, of course, and L would be leg, all very straightforward. And you have P would be prohibited, otherwise it's the number of movement points that it costs. So if you were going through an alley in a tracked vehicle, aka tank, it would cost you 2 movement points per hex. Obviously, we don't have any alleys out in the middle of the desert. So you're looking at dust, maybe. Not in this scenario, we don't have dust, although we do have limited visibility. So that would be that. And then so let's just say that we wanted to do, this guy, looking at this guy here. Right? So he's a vehicle. You'd have to check the range. So we do have a line of sight tool. I'll click that on. So if we want to check this hex to this hex, you can see the range there is 21. That means they're out of range. So they cannot see each other. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so after we do that, our next step here on our sequence of play, if we scan back over there, we go from spotting phase to the command phase. So you give commands before you know who has initiative, right? So that's a little bit of a tool to use, or the tool that's in place in the game to prevent you from making commands based on information. So you don't have the information to know if you're going to be going first or second. And the way it works is when you win initiative, you are considered first player. And you can see here in our combat phase, the first player goes first and the second player goes second. But in the movement phase, for general movement, second player goes first, first player goes second. So that's another key component of the rules for this game. So how do we determine available command steps? So basically what you do is you look at the seasoned column here, because we are both seasoned. Both the British and the Germans are seasoned in this scenario. And you count up the number of units. So the Germans have 2 Panzer III's, 4 Panzer IIIG's, and 2 Panzer IIF's. That is a total of 8. So you would find the 8 column right here. And under seasoned in column 8, it's 5. So they get 5 commands. Now, the British, on their side, they have 4, 7, 9. They have 9 units, so they would be the same thing, and they would end up getting 5 commands as well. So the way this works is pretty straightforward. So you can see up here, I kind of dragged the tool area down so you can see a little bit of this at least. Here's a move command, right? So we just bring this in, and we'll say that these guys we'll get, there's 5 total commands, right? And they can share commands if they're in the same hex. So they're not, so we'll give them both move commands, that's 2. And then if we come up here, we can use 2 more, like so. So they'll take the same command basically, but by having different move commands, they can move to different places. So we're going to do the same thing with the Germans. They've got 3 stacks. We're just going to stick a move on each of these 3. And that is that pretty much. So after we do the command phase, as I trip over my tongue, we go to our initiative phase. Okay, so now in terms of initiative, in our scenario rules here, it says that there is no force grade modifier. So typically you would be applying a modifier to this based on the, like here you can see we get grades, right? And you would get a modifier. So we're seasoned, and you don't get any modifiers for seasoned anyway, but it also says when determining initiative, no force grade modifiers apply. So we're not going to worry about that. So all we're going to do is we're going to roll D100 for both, and the higher number gets initiative. So first we'll roll for the British, and they get a blue. That was a 10, sorry. We'll roll for the British here. They get a 24. Now we'll roll again for the Germans. They get a 32. So the Germans get initiative. So they have the option to be first player or second player. So I think what they will elect to do is they will be first player, which means the British will move first because, again, we're not going to have a combat phase because there is no, oh, it's right here, duh. So it says season 0. So there is no adjustment anyway, but it specifically spells that out in the scenario description as well. So then you would go to the air phase, which we do not have any aircraft in this scenario. We also don't have any leg units. So this is, again, tanks only, although there are some armored cars, which are also vehicles, of course, but they're not tanks. Then you would go to the combat phase, and again, we don't have any, nobody can spot each other yet because we're still at extreme range, so there won't be any combat phase. So we go to the movement phase. There is no close assault or hand-to-hand combat. So we go movement, second player goes first, that's the British, then the Germans will go. So that's all we have to do, and it's basically a repeat of what we did last turn. So I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to move our units. And I guess we'll move our recon units. All right, well, their movement factor is a 15. So we will just go 1, 2, 3. And then to move in clear terrain, it's sand, but it's clear. Yeah, 2. It's not soft sand. So it's just sand, which gives no cover. And number 11, treated as light for spotting. Okay, so I did not know that. I'm guessing this is sand, right? Looks like sand. So we moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now this here, I believe, is rough. So if we again pull out terrain effects chart up, rough for a, oh, this is a wheeled unit, actually costs 8. And sand costs 4. So let me recalc this here. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8 would be 15, but we're no longer on path. So we have to use the 8, which means he stopped here. So we'll take this guy and we're going to move him pretty similarly. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 7 and stop right there. I know they moved. Now this guy here, their movement factor on our path is 7. So they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then this one will just follow along. And he's going to end up right one behind them because he started one behind them. Makes it easy. So they've all moved. Now we jump over to the Germans. They're all down here, and they have a movement factor of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they'll go 1, 2, 3. And then they're going to jump off, I think, and go in sand. Their movement, I think, is 2. Sand, it is for tracked, it's 2. Okay. How far away are we now from them? Let's see. Whoops. Oh, come on. That is 14. All right. Turn that off. So we moved 3, right? Because they were here. 1, 2, 3. They can't move off-road if they move 3. 4, 5, 6. So they'll move there. You always have to face a hex side, not a vertex. So they are facing a hex side. They're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're going to move up right behind their buddies here. We will rotate them counterclockwise. So now they're all facing up. They're on the road still. We're going to do the same thing with this stack over here. I'm going to remove this. So I just did remove all command markers. Where's the mouse? Disappears on me sometimes and I can't find it. Not that it actually sees. So the command markers are gone on the British as well. Okay, so that is the end of turn 2. So if I bring my turn marker back, this should have been here and it would have been flipped to the Germans having initiative. We'll go to turn 3 here. So in turn 3, our spotting modifier is still -2. And now we're closer to each other, so we are within spotting range. So, and you do have 360-degree spotting, so you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not facing the right way. You do have the ability to see each other. Let's zoom this out a little bit. Let's go that, so that we can see a little bit more here. So we can see these recons. All right, so here in turn 3, I guess because the Germans had initiative, we'll let them do spotting first. Really doesn't matter because they're probably all going to be spotted anyway. So if I bring my thing back up here, so now they start at 20, right? And so these modifiers here are shifts of row. So from 20, right, spot move or spot fire would move this, right? But you can only move at most, in a positive direction, you can only move +2. In a negative direction, you can only move minus. So since they moved, right, it would actually be 40, and I forgot to implement this on the first turn. So in theory, in the first turn, everybody could spot each other. So the tanks would have had an advantage there, the German tanks, because they could have shot at the armored cars, which of course are thin, lightly armored vehicles that would probably be more likely to get destroyed. But that was not, I didn't do it that way. So, but you can see here, if you get into cover where you start, light cover gives you a -1, so that 20 becomes a 10. If you're in heavy cover, you drop -3, and then you have to be pretty close to actually get seen as a vehicle. So that's pretty good. Now, so basically everybody, because everybody moved, and with the recon, they would get a +1 as well. But everybody basically has been spotted. You can safely assume that, right? So even though, and let's zoom out again, even though these guys are all the way up here, and the range from there is, well, now it's 16, but it was longer than that before. They can obviously see each other. So we can all spot each other. And so now we're going to have to do commands, right? So now from the German standpoint and from the British standpoint, you have to ask yourself, what commands do I want to give my units here? So the answer to that question is probably, in some cases, it's going to be a fire command, maybe. But maybe we should look at our data cards, right? So here is our data card for our Mark IIs, which are, of course, up in this area of the map. Now, this is the gunnery range. So you have extreme is 14 for AP. Unfortunately for the Mark IIs, they are at 16 and 17 respectively from this first German unit. So they are out of range. If you're beyond extreme, then you've got basically no chance, right? So the R is range, the P is penetration. So you go from extreme to long to medium to short to point blank. And then you have your penetration values. As you can see, as you get closer, you have a higher penetration factor, which goes against the armor that you have on your defensive side. So when we switch over to the Germans, you'll see the German tanks abilities here in a moment. Now, then you have your damage from AP, no damage, damaged, knocked out, and brewed up. Okay, now let's take a look at the Germans here. So we want to find our Panzer 3F, because that's what's here in the front. So we go to the 3F. Now you can see their extreme range is 14, pretty much similar. Their penetration, because they only have 37 millimeter gun. There is a rule for using limited ammo, limited supplies. I'm going to not use that for now, although you can see the penetration values are much better for this APCRA type, which is available from mid 41. So technically we're in May of 41, and the middle of 41 would be June, July. So I'm going to say it's not available. So that makes it a little easier. But we do know our range is 12. So if we hide this again and we bring our range out, right? So if we go from here to say here, the range is 11. And from there to there, it is 13. So 11, again, if we bring our data card back, that is long range, right? It's longer than medium, but it's less than long. So it is long range. So our penetration rating would be a 5, assuming we hit, because that's also part of it as well. Then the penetration would take effect. Now, for general purpose fire, we just wanted to fire general purpose instead of armor piercing because we are talking about a recon vehicle. The range would be 13. Let's switch back to the British for a moment. That recon vehicle is, what is that? That is a Daimler Mark 1A, it looks like, maybe. That is, let's see. Wheeled. Daimler Mark Dingo, that's it. Daimler Dingo Mark 1A. So this is what it is. It does have some armor. It's armed with a Boys Mark 1 anti-tank rifle or machine guns. In this case, it is armed, I believe, with an anti-tank rifle. It is. Its range, however, is only a 10, so it cannot fire back at the Germans. So what all this boils down to, and this is what makes the videos longer, is you have to figure this stuff out at first. After you know it, you'll remember it, depending on the strength of your memory. You might remember it, and then you won't have to look it up as much. And this is why it's hard to get through a lot of turns with this game, because there's a lot going on. And if you don't have all the cards memorized, especially when you're trying to explain it like I am right now. So basically what this all boils down to, as I hide this again, is that the British are all going to get movement orders, and the Germans, at least this guy and these here, I think I'll give them fire orders, and I'll probably give this guy a movement order. Okay, so here you see I've put the orders out. We've got move orders for all the British units, fire orders for the first two groups of Germans, and for the third group, I actually put them in Overwatch, which is kind of like opportunity fire. It's reaction fire, basically. So if the enemies come within range, they can fire at them. That's the idea. They're Panzer IIs. Panzer IIs don't have great range. If we look at the Panzer IIs here, these are what, Panzer IIF, I think? Yeah, Panzer IIF. Well, their range is decent, but the penetration is not great. They've got 20 millimeter guns, not particularly large or powerful, of course. Oops. Okay. So our next step would be to, if we look at our turn sequence that I just had up here, and sequence of play, we go to the command phase, which we just did, initiative phase. Now, one thing I forgot to do on turn 2 is we have a special rule in the scenario rules for reinforcements. So the reinforcements, forces remaining companies and squadrons have the potential of arriving as reinforcements starting on turn 2, based on the arrival table before the initiative phase of turn 2, and each turn thereafter. Each force rolls a D100. If the result falls within the listed range for that turn, that force can move their remaining company squadrons on the selected path hex. They may utilize the path movement rate. However, the earlier they come in, well, it's harder to get them early. For turn 3, we get a 0-1 to 40 would make them eligible to come in, but you don't have to bring them in if you don't want to. And the reason you might not want to is you lose 45 victory points if you bring them in on turn 3. On turn 2, you had a 20% chance of them arriving, but you would take a 70 victory point hit. So let's hide this. We're going to roll D100. We'll do the Germans first. And they get a 43, so they are outside the range. They are not eligible. The British get a 55, so they are also not eligible. So starting on turn 4, there will be no victory point adjustment on turn 4. Then if we get it to turn 5, you gain 45 victory points, and on turn 6, you gain 70 victory points. So we will now roll for initiative, as that is our next step here on our sequence of play. We're rolling for initiative. Again, there's no adjustment. Let me hide this so we can see it better. So the Germans got a 63 and the British got a 97. So the British actually get initiative which is kind of, well, they win the roll. They could award the Germans the opportunity to be the first unit, the first side to take actions, because that in the combat phase, as we see here, of course, there is no air phase, no first or second air phase. There are no aircraft. So you have combat phase first. We don't have any indirect fire. There's no mortars. There is no artillery in this scenario. So we're looking at direct fire. You get first player, second player, Overwatch. So they can negate that Overwatch if they let the Germans go first, basically, because they all their units have movement orders, so they would move here in phase B of the movement phase. So they will elect to allow the Germans to have the initiative so that the British will be able to move first in the movement phase. So we will hide our turn sequence. And now you'll get to see how combat works. So we have our German unit here. Now we already established that our range, and I'm going to check it again just to make sure, is 11, right? So our range is 11. We can hide that. Now if we pull our data card up again for that Panzer IIIF, right, we're at long range. Our penetration will be 5. Okay, so now we go through the sequence for combat. So let's remove our card and bring up our sequence of play, or data player A cards rather. Go to here. Now you can see you've got AP hit modifiers. The target moving is -2. Target size, we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's see, we're not using a short halt. Shooter's not damaged. Shooter's not suppressed. Shooters, there's no dust, but there is you know what? I forgot to roll for spotting. I just realized that I forgot to roll for spotting. So let's go back over here. Now for spotting ranges, right? So oh, we're not using advanced spotting, actually. We're not using the optional spotting in rule. That's an optional rule. So I already established that they are spotted, and we're just going to resolve our fire here. So again, let me slide this over a little more. Okay, so here's our hit range. So our range is long. Our modifier is, the target is in sand, which is no cover. That's what I thought, just confirming. So we get no modifier there. We do get a -2 from moving. So that'll knock it down to a 40. But I think that's all we've got. Some of these are tough. So we're going to roll our D100. And let me hide this so we can see it. Got a 46, so that is a miss. So let me reveal that. And now we'll have this one try. Now the range will be 1 extra. It'll be 12 here. So we will again be looking at range is long again. Oh, actually I needed a 24 because I was looking at medium. We needed a 24 and we'll need a 24 again. So let's roll. And he got a 4. That's a hit. So we have hit him. So once you get your hit, you have to determine let's check something here. So you have this AP number of hits. So to see if this comes into effect here, our hit number was a 4. And then you have penetration as well. But let's look at our data card real quick. So our data card here, rate of fire is quick. Okay, so if we go back to here, you can see Q1, I think is what it said. It just says Q. Okay. So it's Q, and our hit number was a 24. And we get 2 hits because we rolled a 4. And so if anything from 0-1 to 0-6 is 2 hits when your hit number is 24. So we got 2 hits on him, which is nice from a German standpoint. So let's put this back. So we now need to check the hit angle. And so let me zoom in for a moment here. And let's reveal this. And I'm going to actually remove it. Whoops, not what I meant to do. Because the facing of this unit is incorrect. It needs to be facing this way. So let's do that. There. This is the front of the vehicle. So we're going to rotate it so that it is facing this way. So looking at our firing angle, I'm pretty sure this is front because our line of sight here goes through the front hex. So this hex here is going to be front because you have front side on either side. And then of course you have rear and the rear sides, but this is just front, direct front. So right on the front. So if we pull up our data card here for our British, our Daimler Dingo here, we're in the front, right? This is going to be level fire. So back on our player aid card, we have our AP hit locations. We're rolling in the front column. We roll a D10, and you can see 1 to 4 will be turret front, 5, 6 is hull front, 7, 9 is they're not hull down. So basically 5 to 9 is going to be a hull front, and a 10 is going to be track. So let's roll a D10. And our D10 says it is a 9, so that's going to be hull front. So our hull front armor for a level shot is 6. And if we go back to the Germans, their penetration at this range is a 5. So our shot in this case has no effect because the armor piercing or penetration value here of 5 is less than the armor value of the armored car, which is a 6 for its hull front. So it needs to be equal or greater than to penetrate. It did not penetrate, and that would be true for both shots. So he hit him twice, but did no damage. Now, if we go back to the British card here, you can see if he had hit him in the rear, would have penetrated, but nothing from the front would have penetrated. Front side, yeah, a hit on the side would have penetrated as well, but did not. So that is that. So let me put my markers back. Now, actually, I messed up there. You can see I switched this to a fire marker, indicating that he has fired. Now I can do it again for the other tank. And unfortunately, though, it's not going to make any difference because the angle is still going to be front and we can't penetrate. And now back here, this stack is Panzer III Gs. So if we look at our, I think they're all Panzer III Gs. If I'm, yep. So if we now look at our data card and look at the Panzer III G, that number right there will penetrate. So we're going to do the same thing again, except this time we're firing from 12 hexes away. So we're still within long. And we still get the -2. So let's swap over to our chart here. So we start at 0, we're at long, which is a 30. Of course, the target's moving, so we get a -2. So we're still looking for a 24, right? So we'll hide this for the moment. We're going to roll. That's a mess for the top. We have 4 tanks here. That's a hit. So we have a hit with the 7, which is only going to be, I think, 1 hit, if I remember correctly. Number of hits, a number, yeah, so 7 or higher is 1 hit. I'm not sure if that one is actually quick. It is. Okay. All right, so we got the hit. Now we know it's front. We'll roll our D10. We got a 2 this time. Take my word for it. A 2 is turret front, so it's the same as what we had. It's not the same, actually. It's a turret hit. So turret front. And we know the British in the turret front here is still a 6 for kinetic energy round. That's what KE stands for. CE is chemical energy. So we will hide that. Whoops, not the turn track. We'll hide that. And although actually we should flip this because the British won initiative there. All right, now, okay, so we have our hit location. Now we have to roll for penetration. Actually, before we do that, let's just make sure we had a 6, and the Germans, as we saw a moment ago, the penetration value is an 8. So we have a +2. So you see this penetration chart down here. This is optional rule penetration, which we won't use. I'm trying to keep it relatively simple, so we'll go down here. And what you do is you look at the data card, and you see AP damage right here. And you do it on the target, of course. This is the unit that's been hit. Now they only have 1 hit to roll, so we just roll 1d10 for them. And they got a 7, and a 7 is a knockout. So that means that tank has been destroyed. And the way we mark that, I'm sorry, I said tank. This is a recon vehicle equipped with an anti-tank rifle, which he will not get an opportunity to use. We're going to right-click, and then we have damage, knocked out. We put a knockout marker on there. He has been destroyed. Now, we can remove this because it does not matter anymore. The tank has been knocked out. There is an eliminated unit box somewhere. Yes, right here. I think we can put this in here. Yeah. Let's rotate it back. Well, I guess you can. And we'll leave the KO on there, I guess. All right. Well, okay, so now they've been, we will remove this, we'll reveal it and delete it, and then we will take these guys and we're going to mark them spot fire. Why is that not working? That is not working, and I don't know why. Well, all right. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way. So that completes the combat. We do have 2 more units here. Oh, I should mark these guys as being spot fire too. the red dot indicates that they have fired. You can see fires at a target. Now I could have done it with all of these because this guy did, this guy did, and this guy did. All right, and you can do the same thing with the British once they move. So we've got our stacks here. So now the question shall be, what shall they do here? They have the move command. The Germans do have an Overwatch unit. Let's zoom out a little bit there. Okay, now I need to fix his facing. So he is going to rotate this way. Okay, so we're gonna move. Now he's wheeled, and if we check our chart here, flip to the other page, we are in sand, and wheeled pays 4 movement points per hex here. So we will go for how much to go into this rough, because that would give us, rough will give us some medium cover, and they have to pay 8 to go into the rough. Well, that would be their entire movement factor, the 8W there, but I think it's worth it. We're going to move these guys right in here. This will go with them, although we're going to delete it, and we're going to say spot move. And I should put a marker on them. Okay, so they have moved. Now we'll come over here. Let me check the range real quick. From here, their range is 15. These are Panzer IIs. No. Nope. They don't have the range. Don't have the range. Okay, let's move up and over. And let's take this, reveal. I'm going to move this whole stack. Now we'll move down the road, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Go into the sand costs how much for a tracked vehicle? 2. 6, 7. We're going to stop right here. We're going to try and be bold in this scenario here. So then we'll take this, reveal that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right there. Then we'll say delete, move. And we'll just leave it like that. I mean, I could take this and say clone, and take one of them and put it here, and I will clone again and put it here. So that is that. That is the end of turn 3, and I think I will stop here. I apologize that it got kind of long, but I do want to show you how the game works. I know a lot of people have not played it yet. There is a lot to it. I am not using all of the rules, of course, but I'm trying to use a representative set that I feel like is a pretty good sweet spot in terms of being fairly easy to remember, but also giving you enough flavor to make it worth your while. The basic game is just that basic, and it only covers armored combat, and it's very simple. The advanced rules really let you kind of pick and choose to some extent what you want to use. And of course, it adds all the other layers that you want in a tactical combined arms game. You have your leg, you have your armor, you have your artillery, you have your aircraft, all that stuff is in there. So, as I said, that'll do it for now. I'm going to stop here. We will pick this up in the second part, which should be a lot more exciting because there's going to be a lot of combat. And I'm going to start branching these units out and, going off the path, so to speak, so that we can really start tangling with each other, taking advantage. We'll see how the British can take advantage of their slightly better mobility. If the Germans can take advantage of their firepower, we'll also get the reinforcements coming on board. So part 2 should be pretty exciting, probably better than part 1. But I feel like part 1 was useful in that we went through all the steps of moving units onto the map, showing how you mark them, going through basic spotting stuff. This one's relatively simple because we don't have any hills, we don't have any buildings, we don't have anything fancy terrain-wise, very flat. You do have some scrub and rough in here, but it's a very, very basic map. This is a really good kind of basic meeting engagement type of scenario that you can dig your teeth into the game system. So that's it for part 1. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. And we will be back for part 2 here in a couple days. But until then, I am Joe. This is the Hexed Encounter channel. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.